If you've ever observed very young children or even worked with them yourself, you notice quickly that they reach and touch everything, right? And many times what they grab with their hand is going straight for their mouth if they're very, very young. This is part of how children learn about their world, right? They're discovering, they're interacting. But part of the concern for those well-meaning adults who are working with them is that in these situations, children are too young to see the danger or the risk of some of the items that they're trying to pick up. They will just as easily pick up a stick or a block or a toy as they will a sharp object that could hurt themselves or others. I've often found myself telling my children during this very young season or stage of life to put that down, right? Usually it's because I can see a risk or a danger that they can't. I'm trying to get them to put something down because if they keep carrying it around, it will likely hurt themselves or someone else. Now, I want to think for a minute, with those things in mind, about the spiritual practices we've been talking through. Prayer, study, community, surrender. These types of practices, as we have mentioned, often involve picking up new habits or just new skills or again, just new ways of taking on life. But let's think about the other side of the coin. What about spiritual practices that ask you to put something down? The most obvious of these practices is fasting, which is our focused practice for this week. Fasting seems to always be a somewhat controversial and misunderstood spiritual practice. Maybe because it just runs so contrary to what the world tells us. We do, in fact, live in a world that is full of stuff, right? We fill our homes with things. Sometimes we need sheds in our backyard to contain it all, or storage units that we fill up with stuff somewhere other than our house. One of the ways we show our children and very young children how much we care about them is by giving them all the stuff that we never have, right? We are encouraged to pick up as much as we can in life. And even if we aren't one of those people who feels they need to buy the latest and the greatest, we often struggle with just letting go of things. We place sentimental value on possessions, or we get almost obsessed or fixated on certain types of things that we want to collect or invest in. Or we just think to ourselves, who knows when I'll need this item, I better not let go of it. Of course, that's the whole principle of the show Hoarders, and well, we know how that turns out. Fasting is a spiritual practice which shows us that letting go and putting down is important. Fasting is a spiritual practice that can help us to put down the things of life that may hurt us if left unchecked. Endlessly chasing the stuff of life, giving into our ever-changing opinions, living for self fulfillment, it can cause us to pick up things that may hurt us. Things like greed or a lust or jealousy of others. We may pick up habits of self-centeredness or just a general kind of spiritual apathy. We may end up picking up habits or practices that lead to idolatry in our lives. If we don't put these things down, they will end up hurting us. This is where Jesus' teaching on fasting in Matthew 6 takes us. Now, Jesus has advice to offer for those who are fasting or who are practicing fasting, and those pieces of advice are very important. But the point that fasting leads to is where I want to focus just for a moment. As Jesus teaches the importance of fasting, the importance of putting things down in our life, letting things go, he follows this up by talking about our possessions. We can't serve God and grow in our faith if we are constantly trying to pick up everything that the world is offering. Only when we let go and put down our need for more will we have the space for Jesus that he deserves. Jesus says that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Maybe another way of thinking about this would be whatever you pick up in life is what your heart will become attached to. I think this is why fasting and putting things down is often a painful experience for us, even though it is necessary if we want to grow in our faith. In your groups, take some time to talk with one another about what you need to put down or let go of in your life and in spiritual practice. Help one another to find ways to put fasting into practice so that you can put down the things that will ultimately lead to destruction and make room for the real treasure of heaven, Jesus. God bless you in your groups.